This is a pretty interesting video that I just watched. This is from Ben Shapiro, who was the founder of the Daily Wire, which has now become AOC 24/7, and this one is also tied to AOC, funny enough. So there's a woman named Charlotte Alter. Now, I don't know who she is, and he's going to sort of describe some of the situations about her. Now, of course, there are a ton of problems in our current economy right now. There are about, 30K people who end up passing away because they don't have access to basic healthcare. It's like 30 to 40 G's amount of people. There's, like 30 million people uninsured in the United States. Wages have remained stagnant, but of course, inflation goes up and the cost of living goes up. There's all kinds of problems. Student loan debt, it's over 1.6 trillion in totality, I believe, and you can't default on those loans. I think it's the only loans you can't default on. And what's weird about this is Ben Shapiro is actually going to go after millennials and how they talk about all of the problems that exist in the economy and have existed for them. And he's going to call them whiny brats. And I'm basically here to respond by saying, you are a sort of condescending piece of trash. Check this out.
Charlotte Alter tweets this out. She tweets out, AOC and I were born the same year. Remember, she's a journalist, folks. She's not the official autobiographer. She's not a ghostwriter for AOC. She's a journalist. Quote, AOC and I were born the same year. She was a Dunkaroos kid. I liked fruit roll-ups. People our age have never experienced American prosperity in our adult lives, which is why so many millennials are embracing democratic socialism. You have got to be kidding me. People our age have never experienced American prosperity in our adult lives. You spoiled child. You spoiled brat. And AOC, you spoiled child. You spoiled brat. AOC writes, yes, and this is not just my story. This is true of wide swaths of our entire generation who are now poised to become a much more influential civic and electoral bloc as we mature into our 30s and beyond. Wow. So it's so tough to be a millennial. Wow, it's so brutal to be a millennial. Shut your head. Honestly, shut your head. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. You are living the best life any people have ever lived on planet Earth. You're living in a country where you can say anything you want. You're living in a place where you have more income than anyone in history, where with a touch of a button, any product anywhere on Earth will arrive at your door in 3 days for the cheapest available price. You're living in a world where your chances of starvation are zero, where your chances of homelessness are effectively zero if you have any sort of social fabric or any money at all. A world in which you live in a nation with 3.8% unemployment and 7 million unfilled jobs, where your poverty line involves having a microwave, a car, a stove, and a TV. You're whining about poverty? You? Charlotte Alter is whining about poverty? Really? Okay, Charlotte Alter also tweeted out, in order to understand AOC, you have to look at what she experienced and what she didn't. Red Scare, Reaganomics, and prosperous 90s were all before her time. Her adulthood was defined by financial crisis, debt, and climate change. No wonder she and her peers are moving left. If you think that living in the 2000s and the 2010s is brutal, you're a doof. You don't know anything about history. You don't know anything about any place else on planet Earth. You're dumb. You're ignorant. I mean, I don't mean to be insulting, but I do. I'm sorry. I do mean to be insulting because these ideas are laughable. Charlotte Alter complaining about the difficulties of millennials. Let me tell you something about Charlotte Alter, okay? We're going to talk about for a second who this woman is who is claiming that as a millennial, you have never experienced prosperity. Charlotte Alter was born in 1990. 1990, okay, so that means that she is 29 years old? She's the same age as AOC. Her father is Jonathan Alter. He's a columnist for Newsweek and a correspondent for NBC News. He's one of the more famous political commentators of the modern world. Her mother was Emily, executive producer on The Colbert Report on Comedy Central. Her grandmother was the first woman elected to public office in Cook County, Illinois. Her uncle was the CEO of Sony. She went to Harvard University and then worked at HBO and now has a show on Sirius XM. Oh, the suffering. Oh, the humanity. Charlotte Alter and her peers, they've never experienced prosperity. Ever. It's just incredible. I mean, what unbelievable. Listen, I know that there are some people in America who are experiencing poverty. I know there are some people in America who grew up in single-parent households and really had to struggle to get ahead. I know there's some people in America living in areas where the jobs have left, but they're nothing compared to Charlotte Alter. I mean, my goodness. Imagine the difficulty of having to grow up in a house where your mom produces for Comedy Central and your dad is one of the more famous columnists in the West. Just imagine how rough that must be. I weep for her. I weep for her. It's always astonishing to me to watch people who've really had it pretty good in the United States whine about how rough they have it in the United States. Like me, I've had it great in the United States. I don't whine about having it rough because I've had it great. Okay, and I grew up in a 2-bedroom house in Burbank, California that fit 6 people. It was like an 1,100 square foot house. It fit 6 people. It had 1 bathroom. I slept in the same bedroom as my 3 younger sisters until I was 11 years old. And you know what? My life was phenomenal. I had 2 parents who loved me. I lived in a neighborhood where all of us knew each other. There was a social fabric because America is freaking great. America is terrific. Millennials whining about how rough they have it while chomping down on avocado toast is one of the more obnoxious phenomena of our modern world.
All right, look, so the point of, him doing this whole thing is to be like, these millennials are super whiny, and I think the video is titled like they're spoiled brats or something, which they're far from spoiled brats. But, again, I want to say that this guy is just basically being a condescending D-bag here. So he talks about Charlotte Alter because she's the one who made this. Now, I guess she's had like a good wealth in terms of herself and her parents, but so she may not be the person to talk about this, right? Which you can talk about in other situations for other people, but that doesn't mean that those problems don't exist. So I think a lot of people pounced on this because of her specific situation. An example of this actually was when I was watching the Jesse Lee Peterson Hassan Piker debate. At one point, Hassan's talking about how, the U.S. isn't a meritocracy, and he's right. The U.S. isn't a meritocracy, but the problem is like, dude, your uncle is jank, and you got the only reason you had TYT at that time was because he's your uncle, and so it's like, and then people end up laughing at that, and it's like, dude, that's you're not the right person to say that because your own thing. So that's the thing here. But does that mean that in this situation that millennials don't have extreme problems in the economy? Of course not. Does it mean that the U.S. is a meritocracy? Of course not. Of course not. Not even close. So remember the economy that the millennials actually jumped into, funnily enough. What economy did the millennials jump into? They jumped into the crashed economy. So they basically jumped into the marketplace at around 2008, somewhere around there. They literally came into a marketplace of a crashed economy, a Great Depression so large that we had not seen an economic collapse of this magnitude since the Great Depression. A serious, serious hit to the economy, okay? People were struggling, man. Things were not going well, okay? So they jump into that economy where there are less jobs and the economy is not stable in any way, shape, or form. And anytime the economy is not doing good, that jobs are scarce and it's very hard to get a job. So that's the economy that they jump into. Now, what did they do right before they had jumped into that economy? Well, they went to school, right? Now they take on insane amounts of student loan debt, which are really, really crazy now, by the way, guys. We need free college for sure and to cancel student loan debt because the burden of these college loans on people is extremely undue, as well as it exhibits and forces people to express very negative qualities of our economy. So it has a lot of negative consequences on our economy because people don't have as much money to actually spend on things. They end up put in a lesser position in poverty, which is not good for the economy, obviously. So they jumped into an economy where there are no jobs, and they came out of college, out of school, with tens of thousands of dollars, if not over 100,000. Some people have over 100K student loan debt. Okay, so you're acting like a condescending fuckboy to people who jumped into an economy that was right after the '08 crash, and that the people who came out of college right before that with a massive amount of student loan debt, guys. The student loan debt crisis now like over $1.6 trillion. They can't default on those loans, and it's an extremely undue burden. Again, I want to repeat that. So they have to come out with a ton of college student loan debt. They can't find any jobs, and the cost of living are still high. And then also, we've got problems with healthcare, as I just mentioned earlier. So you've got all of these compounding problems, right, that exist. You jump into an economy that's crashed. You have a ton of student loan debt. And then you also have healthcare issues like we do in the United States, where 30 million people don't have insurance, and our system right now sucks a big dong, okay? That's the situation we're in right now, and Ben Shapiro is somehow, praising this situation. And what's weird about Ben Shapiro is like, and this is something that exists amongst conservatives, but it always seems like, a lot of Democrats or liberals are the ones who are trying to embetter the country, and then the Republicans are the ones who, suck off the country, while either criticizing it or, that's kind of their game. So, it's almost like a religion for him, like America's great, America's good, America's great. Are you expressing concerns over problems that you've been impacted by as well as other people that you know? No. You can't talk about that because America's great. What are you talking about? Wanting to live in another time. Psh, what? What are you talking about, man? It's so stupid. Like when she says democratic socialism, again, a term incorrectly used here. If you want a real democratic socialist, look at Eugene Debs. But what she's talking about is social democracy, which all means is a capitalist system with a heavy welfare state. So let's get universal health care. Let's get free college. Let's cancel student loan debt. Let's raise a minimum wage to a living wage in every single state. You know what I'm saying? So this is not something that's all, that's really crazy. And he's just like this extremely like smug prick, man. It's like this kind of, who finds this to be legit? Like, are you serious? You're telling me that the entire prognosis that I just broke down, where it's like, okay, these people came into an economy with no jobs, or the worst economy ever since the Great Depression, and they came out with a ton of student loan debt, and even now there are severe problems in our economy right now, and they're still paying off their student loan debt, and probably even have more debt because they couldn't get any jobs because they came into a crash market, and you're gonna say that they're spoiled brats? What? How does that even make sense? How does that even pass the smell test, dude? It doesn't, because it doesn't make any sense. He's just being a condescending, complete d-bag, and this constant, religious-like praise of the United States is creepy. It's weird, and it doesn't make any sense, man. It doesn't make any sense at all whatsoever. And so when I see this kind of crap, I'm like, dude, what are you doing? This doesn't make any sense. People have serious grievances because they have serious problems that they're facing right now in the United States. And your response is basically to be like, oh, you're spoiled. How? What is that? I don't understand that. It doesn't make any sense. Anyways, let me know your thoughts on this down below.